Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 2020, The Evolved Guest Journey. Today's webinar is presented by SkyTouch Technology, OpenKey and Go Moment. Let me go ahead and introduce today's panel of presenters. Our first presenter is Peggy Pollock from SkyTouch Technology. Peggy has worked in the hotel technology industry for over 20 years. She joined SkyTouch Technology over a year ago as a product manager for integrations. Peggy has been driving the adoption of SkyTouch's rapidly adopted /Connect API integration platform, working with partners from the initiation of integration to final development, and she is the face of SkyTouch within the vendor community. She's a key part of the SkyTouch product development team, and she works closely with their development, onboarding, and technical support teams. Our next presenter is Brian Shedd from OpenKey. Brian leads OpenKey's sales and marketing teams, bringing senior-level expertise from both the Las Vegas Strip and Madison Avenue. Formerly a casino executive with Mandalay Resort Group, Brian also managed a worldwide portfolio of marketing agencies for the Omnicom Group. Since joining OpenKey's executive team in 2015, Brian has played a key role in the evolution of the OpenKey product and created the sales and marketing organizations of what has become the industry standard for universal mobile keys in hotels. Under Brian's leadership, OpenKey has become the largest independent mobile key company in the world. And our final presenter is Raj Singh from Go Moment. Raj is a product design expert and the CEO at Go Moment, a Google-backed company dedicated to making customer service instant. As seen on NBC, Go Moment IV is the world's largest customer service automation platform for hotels. Raj brings cross-discipline design, technology, and marketing experience from hundreds of large-scale technology projects to Go Moment, from leading brands such as Virgin, Lady Gaga, and Have Grocery Company. In partnership with IBM Watson, Go Moment's IV platform automates up to 90% of guest communication and is currently available to millions of hotel guests worldwide. Now, before I hand this webinar over to our panel, let's quickly go over today's agenda. First, we're going to examine evidence that suggests that today's hotel guests have changed and how they're different. Next, we'll take a look at guest expectations in 2020, where they're trending, and what this means for your hotel. And finally, we'll help you determine if you have the tools necessary for your hotel to give its guests the modern experiences they're looking for. Finally, we'll be closing our webinar with a round of Q&A with our panelists. Now, at any time during our webinar, you can send your questions to us via the chat or Q&A WebEx panels for our panel to answer. Raj, can you please kick things off for us?
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Chris, and hello and good morning to everybody. We're thrilled to present some of these industry trends today, and the biggest one I think that we can all acknowledge and we're all living through today is that our world is changing. We see major forces. Each of these technologies that you see on your screen has billions of dollars of research and development, and of course market penetration that has really stacked up. And I think with voice, we are all familiar now with Siri, with Alexa, with Google Assistant, and other technologies that really have proliferated the consumer technology landscape in a meaningful way, and are certainly going to have impacts in the hospitality industry that we all work in. So that's something that we're excited to talk about. On the Internet of Things, or IoT for short, this is something that has essentially been getting into our homes, into our workplaces on a very steady basis over the last 5 or 10 years. And this includes, the Internet of Things includes devices that are connected to the internet and maybe a bit more appliance-like, such as a Nest thermostat or a Ring doorbell or any of those kinds of devices. Certainly excluding the phones and tablets that we have all around our living and working spaces today. And artificial intelligence, or AI, is so fundamental to the new technology landscape that essentially this is getting infused into everything. So when you're watching Netflix and the recommendations tomorrow are better than they were today, that's happening through artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the most powerful thing is happening right now when all of these technologies are kind of coming together in one connected system. And the big question that we have to ask ourselves as hoteliers and as hotel technology professionals is, are we as an industry ready to meet rising guest expectations? And this is something that we'll explore today. Moving into the Internet of Things, you may not know this yet, but we were surprised to see that 90% of US consumers already owned a smart home device, just like the Nest or the Ring devices that we were just talking about. And this is as of May 2018, almost 18 months ago. So we expect that penetration of Internet of Things and IoT devices has only increased. And now guests are controlling their homes on demand. So if they want to turn lights on and off in a room, they don't have to physically be in that room. If they want to open the drapes, they may not have to be right next to the drapes. They can do it at the touch of a button. Now, if they are controlling, if consumers and guests in general are controlling their in-home experience completely on demand, what does that mean for hotel rooms? Does that mean that our guests are also going to expect to control their hotel experience on demand? Will they want to turn lights on and off and thermostat and set all of these kind of things from their devices? We believe so. And this is a trend that is playing out in a very big scale in the US and international consumer landscape, and is certainly going to impact very heavily in the hospitality industry. And we would love to enable folks to get ready for this change. So, Brian, what kind of a guest population can we expect to serve in the coming years that wants everything on demand?
So, thanks, Raj. We've seen the technology is changing, and it's changing the world. It's changing the way that everyone is interacting with the world. But what does that mean in terms of hoteliers and the new type of guests that they are beginning to see show up at their front desk, check in and interact with their staff? And I think statistics are going to answer that question for us. So as you can see here on this chart from the Pew Research Center, as of 2020, millennials have actually overtaken baby boomers as the largest adult population in the world. The 73 million millennials that are currently of age, if you want to say that, certainly of traveling population age, actually account for 25% of the population. So it's the most significant demographic that hoteliers are facing today in terms of trying to attract, trying to retain, and in terms of the value of these millennials. The millennial demographic is actually worth about $1.4 trillion in spend just in 2020 alone. So it's a huge opportunity for hoteliers from a revenue standpoint. Millennials, we know as well, are somewhat different than the other demographics in that the average millennial plans on taking about 5 trips this year. So that's also a significant number when you multiply that by the 73 million that are out there. It's a lot of opportunity for hoteliers to drive occupancy. And the one key factor I think that we'll get into in more detail with this webinar is the presence and the importance of the smartphone. 92% of millennials own a smartphone and use it on a regular basis. So when we talk about the importance of this demographic, it can't be overstated what kind of a seismic shift millennials are going to present for hoteliers in 2020 and beyond. So one of the key sort of futurists that's well known is Mike Walsh. He's the CEO of a company called Tomorrow, and his company is a go-to resource for many industries, but especially the hotel industry, when it comes to taking a look at emerging trends and identifying, all right, where do we need to pay attention to, what's coming around the bend so we can appropriately shift our way of thinking across the components of service delivery and hardware enablement and things like that. And at the High Tech in Houston last year, Mike Walsh pointed out that there are 3 key shifts that are happening within the industry, the hospitality industry, and those have to do with guest expectations, guest engagement, and what Raj pointed out earlier, which is IoT and the importance of IoT. And the key factors I think that Mike is pointing out is that millennials are fundamentally different from boomers, from Generation X in a number of ways. Some of those ways are harder to wrap your arms around, such as millennials are more prone to seek experiential type engagements versus boomers and perhaps Gen X that are looking for more just a stay-based type engagement. But the key components, I think, that Mike has pointed out in terms of hoteliers and engaging millennials is this is a group of population of individuals who have grown up with technology. And, as Raj pointed out before, the presence of technology in the home is really driving an expectation, certainly among the millennial demographic, that they're going to experience the same type of engagement, the same type of convenience within the hotel that they currently have within their homes, to the extent that research has actually pointed out that technology in a hotel and the presence of technology in a hotel is a bigger rating factor for millennials associated with their satisfaction of stay than amenities or decor within the room. Essentially, if a millennial checks in and the Wi-Fi is not is not ever present, is not always on and easily accessible, they are going to cream you on social media, even if the room was fantastic, even if the decor was beautiful. It's a different mentality. It's a different set of expectations and an importance ranking that millennials have. And that perhaps is why mobile is key for them. And I don't mean that as a pun because, OpenKey is about mobile key, but, essentially millennials are used to and expect now to use their smartphone for everything. It's actually at the center of everything they do. So those are, some of the key things that Mike has pointed out with respect to looking at the future and what that looks like. So you're a hotelier. The demographic is changing, and the question is, all right, these guys are technology savvy. They've got expectations, but what does that mean for me in terms of my hotel? How can I actually deliver against those expectations? And the answer is, sorry guys. The answer is that, as you can see, Wi-Fi is critical. And we talked a little bit about that. 98% of guests are expecting that Wi-Fi, high-speed Wi-Fi is going to be present in the hotel. Partnered with that is a high expectation of charging ports, right? So there's no point in having a mobile device if you can't charge it. But I'm not going to belabor this slide. You guys can read and see all of the components. I think what's super important here is the amount of elements here that are involving AI, smart applications, with the mobile device at the very center. The large hotel brands are evolving into this in 2020 in a very, very big way. I think the advent of the smart room is something we're going to see take center stage in 2020 and in the next couple of years for sure. So it's really critical that hoteliers begin to embrace putting as much functionality on the smartphone as they can.
Exactly. And what does that really mean for our hotels? Something I've been thinking about is the concept we need to step back and allow our guests to, you do you. Millennials, they expect a digital experience in everything that they do. Again, what Brian said, they were born in technology. They expect to have a travel experience as seamless as their day-to-day life with their mobile device. But I see this could also be said for the same thing for travelers that have been out there for 20 or 30 years. They want experiences based on their preferences. I really see that what's important is creating a customized guest experiences that are provided via the digital convenience we're used to, with relevant information that can be shared on multiple platforms. Our guests, they're seeking exclusive offers with just a click of a button so they can show them off, really. A cloud-based PMS that's integrated with many different types of services that offer the ability to provide customized experiences is really key, working with great partners and understanding each other's products. For example, providing the ability to instantly email room upgrades or area attraction tickets. Not only connect with your guests, but connecting your staff via your PMS ensures seamless communication to the tools that need to dazzle your guests. Brian, can you tell us about mobile functions hotels should consider?
Yeah, so one thing that we've talked about is, asking the question, so are hotels offering the types of engagement that the current hotel guest is looking for? And as you can see, based on research conducted in this study from 2018, unfortunately, that answer is no, right? Pretty much across the board when it comes to what mobile functions hotels have currently embraced for the guest, it's not a direct pairing up with what the new modern hotel guest is looking for. And I think the takeaway from this particular study really underscores what Skift reported recently, and that's that the most important conclusion from the J.D. Power North American Hotel Guest Satisfaction Index study, that's a mouthful, was essentially for hoteliers to pay more attention to mobile. And you're going to hear that as a theme over and over as we talk through what the evolving guest experience looks like in 2020. It's that mobile device is truly critical. And in 2020 and beyond, we're going to see the expectation evolve exponentially between what a new millennial guest is looking for and what the hotel is delivering actually on site.
Yeah, and so why should we improve customer experience? For hotel business, content is king. Millennials check their phones on average of 43 times per day. Social media has given guests more control over their experience. And frankly, guests are savvier. They know their opinion matters in the digital age. Think about it. They are the authors of your next PR announcement. So with that, I really think loyalty doesn't exist the same way it did 5 or 10 years ago. Guests expect more for every dollar they spend. A study by McKinsey showed that 70% of buying experiences are based on how the customer feels they are being treated. Never lose sight that every customer journey is truly unique to them. When reviewing your best practices, consider moving away from legacy systems and into cloud-based platforms. For better performance, they provide more efficient applications and increase processing capabilities and options. Think about when you improve your customer retention, you think about what tools are available in the marketplace today, surveys, and instant communication through guest messaging. Improve your customer satisfaction by response times, thinking of different options and way to communicate with your staff. There's text messaging, but there's also options of utilizing in-room tablets to do an instant communication with your staff. Also increase cross-selling through personalization, offering deals to area attractions to families. And also, very important prior to check-in, let your guests know you're thinking about them ahead of time and send them a message letting them know we're ready to receive you. A PMS continues to be the heart of the guest journey. We all know that. Service every aspect of the guest experience, and selecting a PMS that is responsive in the cloud and willing to evolve with the guests and working with you is crucial in maintaining your market advantage. Raj, what opportunities are available in the hotels to help gain market share via technology?
Oh, there are really a ton of opportunities here, and this is really exciting to talk about because certainly none of us like to see the color red next to our sector in the hospitality industry, but what this represents is a massive opportunity. So previously we discussed how the consumer landscape is shifting with forces like IoT and AI and voice technologies proliferating. Now, McKinsey and Company did a study on how digitized different verticals are and different sectors are. So we've actually cleaned up the study a little bit for everybody's benefit here, but unfortunately, our beloved hospitality industry actually ranked third from last on this McKinsey study. And essentially, you can look across all of these different dimensions of digitization, where red means that it's fairly low digitization, and green is a little bit better than that, certainly, and relatively high. And what we're seeing here is that although hotels and hospitality have started to adopt digitization and started to transform their organizations, a bit like Peggy was talking about, by migrating to the cloud, by making sure the guest experience is completely instant and on demand wherever possible, there is a huge opportunity to gain market share with technology, because guests today are not just benchmarking your hotel relative to the hotel down the street. They are actually benchmarking the experience that your hotel delivers relative to the experience that they had on the Uber on the ride over to your property, or the experience that they had on Netflix selecting their favorite show and then being recommended this incredible thing that they might have binged for the entire weekend right before showing up at your hotel. So these technologies are definitely driving a lot of loyalty, and the standards for loyalty have shifted significantly. Now let's look at this Deloitte study in order to figure out how all of this comes together. Everything we've discussed today really comes together in this slide and in this study, I think, which illustrates really brilliantly how the new guest experience journey should be working, and what guests are actually expecting now based on the shifting demographics. So Deloitte conducted this study across more than 6,000 hotel guests who collectively stayed at over 25 brands across every tier of hotel to find out what makes a great hotel experience. And so what they essentially found, it has been outlined in their white paper called Next Gen Hotel Guests Have Checked In. We're happy to provide some links if you guys are interested in exploring this further. But just to summarize, the results show that what guests want more than anything else is recognition of their previous patronage and appreciation of that business by providing a more personalized stay experience. Now, going back to the Netflix example, the first day that you use Netflix, it didn't know, exactly what kind of shows you like, so it was recommending things left and right. But as you continue to use the service, every single day it gets better, and it gets harder for you to go to any other service, even though there are lots of competing services at this point, because Netflix has been able to personalize your experience extremely well. Now, Deloitte's survey also outlines how the landscape has shifted over the past few years. So for example, hotel guests were previously satisfied with basic qualities such as a clean room, good value, a great location, and a quiet atmosphere. However, today, Deloitte has termed these qualities the new basics, which are expected but not sufficient to contribute to an exceptional guest experience. And to talk a little bit more about this, let's see what the journey actually looks like once the guest is starting to think about booking your hotel.
Yeah, so when we look at how that guest journey is changing, Raj, what you're talking about in terms of the research, the expectation by millennials, this new traveling demographic, is that hoteliers are going to use the data that exists to help make their process of engagement with the hotel better, simpler, faster, through these components of knowing, engaging, delighting, empowering, and hearing them. And that all begins with the booking process, right? And understanding, why the guests are staying at the property, even to the extent of recognizing that they have stayed there before. And I know that seems to be a fairly simple thing, but even today, and a lot of the hoteliers that are on this webinar struggle to even provide that element of of simplicity when a guest is requesting to check in or making a reservation, to recognize that this is a return guest and not a new guest, so that they can provide just that very, very top level understanding of welcome back instead of have you stayed here before. So there's an expectation by the modern guest that in the booking process, the hotelier is going to recognize that they stayed there before, even to the extent of perhaps why they're staying, recognizing that they may be there for a wedding, they may be there for an anniversary or a special event, which again is simple to do, and yet it so often doesn't happen within the current hotel environment. So to move to the next step in the process, check-in, right, is again allowing the front desk staff to be attentive to arriving guests, and more to the point, providing the front desk with the kind of technology that allows them to do that type of recognition and things. And I would say that as we talked about the fact that mobile is at the very, very center of the millennial guest experience, it's really around exploring how to use that device to empower the guest to control more of their journey within the hotel. And if that looks like allowing the guest to check in via their mobile device prior to arrival, if that looks like being able to even send them a digital key so that there's no need for them to stand in a front desk line, they can just proceed straight to their room. That type of experience exists. And as you can, as most of us have seen, the largest brands in the hospitality space are deploying that technology and have been for the last couple of years. And it's fundamentally changing the way that guests are interacting with hotels and fundamentally changing what those expectations are. And then next up, we talk about the stay, right? And the ability for the hotel to have a 360-degree view of guests, what their experience on property is like, what they are saying on social media around the stay. There's been a lot of research that's been put out there and a lot of content around the importance of making your hotel Instagram worthy, because that's just the reality of the times we live in. The fact that millennials are so engaged with that smartphone, and it's part of their stay experience to share that with their social network of friends. So it's critical that hoteliers recognize that and attempt to sort of bake that into that stay experience through what Deloitte considers delight me, right? Provide me those opportunities as a millennial to do what I like to do, which is share my experience. And as a hotelier, there's also a great deal of information there that can be captured on how the guest stay is going through technology. And Raj can talk a little bit about how that technology actually can help hoteliers get in front of issues to improve that stay.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate that point, I think it's so critical based on everything we're seeing in the industry to have technology doing these things for you. So for example, that on that, check-in, if there's a way to automatically welcome a guest and recognize their loyalty status, welcome them back, exactly like Brian said, that is going to be a lot more scalable and reliable than expecting the front desk staff, who already have a lot of things on their plate, to do that on a day-over-day basis. And similarly, the most empowering part of this journey happens when the guest is looking to do something, because we, as much as we may love our hotels, we know that the guest came to the hotel to actually be doing something, whether it's business or a pleasure trip or something else like that. And this is the opportunity, especially in this market, to extract the highest amount of revenue per guest that is already on your property by proactively recommending offerings, activities, and other events based on the information about the guest's profile. So for example, in Ivy, we are able to actually recognize that this guest is somebody who's interested in golf or interested in the spa, and provide that recommendation automatically to that guest and invite them to a certain event or a certain facility that is available at the hotel, enhancing their stay and actually we consider this an upserving of the guest, because we're actually not just upselling and capturing more revenue, but actually we are finding these guests that have this latent need that might have been 60% likely to book a spa appointment, but when you put it right on their mobile device and it is in front of them in a way that is all about service and making their experience better, that guest can now very easily book, and you're reducing the friction for that guest to spend more money at your hotel. And that is something that the guests find very empowering. And of course, it also encourages guests to then communicate with your hotel staff, who are experts in the local area and know way more than the guest does about the local area and the hotel's facilities. This actually, that communication with the front desk can then begin. If there's a concierge department, they can be better leveraged using these kinds of technologies. And what the greatest part about this is that once you have that line of communication open, guests can get help 24 hours, 7 days out of the week. And we all know as operators that mistakes happen, that service failures will occur once in a while. And what's really interesting is that in this Deloitte study, that guests were actually 40% more likely to share positive reviews when a problem is fixed quickly. And for example, using artificial intelligence and things that we've also built into our platform, we can actually detect when a guest is unhappy and when a problem has occurred and escalate that to make sure that that actually gets priority resolution, knowing that we do not want to keep that guest waiting any longer than they need to have their problem addressed. And this is something that really inspires a lot of confidence in guests, and is actually also captured in this other concept known as the service recovery paradox, which is that a guest that never has a problem at your hotel and just has a very smooth stay and checks out is actually likely to be less loyal to your hotel relative to a guest who checks in, has a problem, has the problem addressed by the staff quickly, and then checks out. So, these opportunities and mistakes and service failures actually can boost your online reputation. They can be turned into great opportunities to increase loyalty with your guests. And certainly with checkout, we know that nobody wants to call down to checkout. Nobody really wants to stand in the line, but certainly guests still do queue up because they need a copy of their folio, or they need an itemized receipt, or anything else of that nature. And with platforms like the ones we've discussed today, especially with Ivy, we enable things like mobile checkout so that a guest can actually just with one text message get a copy of their folio by email, and then just be able to walk out of the hotel room. And then prevent tying up your staff so that the staff can be more attentive for the new guests that are checking in, driving loyalty and positive guest experience on both sides of that coin. Now, looking at this entire guest journey, the key takeaway from this component is that for every point increase in satisfaction from the loyalty program, guests are actually 12% more likely to return and 21% more likely to share positive reviews. And we can certainly talk more at length about this in the Q&A section, but there is proven guest satisfaction increase from using latest technology and using the kind of platforms that we're talking about today. Chris, would you like to outline the key takeaways from the presentation?
Yes, and thank you, Peggy, Brian, and Raj for all the information. So what are our key takeaways today? Well, first, in case you haven't heard, guest expectations are different in 2020 than just a few years ago. Second, millennials are the largest demographic of people traveling, and they expect digital conveniences as part of their travel experience. Third, in order to survive and thrive, hotels have no choice but to embrace technological change. And finally, in order to thrive, hotels need to align their technology choices with their guests' desired experiences. We've now entered that part of our webinar where we will do Q&A with our panelists. We've received a few questions. So first, I'll pose this to the group. Maybe Peggy, you can chime in first. If a hotel adopts all three of these technologies that we've discussed today, will they all work together?
Well, that's the great thing about what we've done at Slash Connect, we've created our own API to have integrations available to us. And today we work closely with OpenKey and Go Moment. Right from the PMS, you can create keys as well as communicate with your staff directly. We have the ability with SkyTouch to create mobile keys via the OpenKey app. It's seamless, easy to use. And with Go Moment messaging app, we're connecting our staff directly to the guest instantly at the moment they check in.
Yeah, I think I'll add, Chris, that as hoteliers looking at what type of technology to integrate to improve the guest experience, it's one of the top things that I think hoteliers should be looking for is how simple is that technology designed to connect with pre-existing technology within your property, right? It's fairly expected today, I think, that adding new technology is going to incorporate having open APIs that make it simple to integrate all of the different technologies within your hotel, because A, you don't want to have to replace all of the technology within your hotel every time you want to add a new one. And secondly, you want all of your technology where it makes sense to easily communicate with each other to improve that guest experience. So that's one of, I think, the hallmarks of all three of these technologies, SkyTouch, OpenKey, and Go Moment, is the fact that from the ground up, they've been designed to easily connect with pre-existing legacy technology within a hotel to create an additive effect instead of incurring additional costs on the hotel's part to try and manufacture some difficult integration.
Yeah, really well stated, Brian. I think, and Peggy totally agreed that, having these cloud native type of platforms like SkyTouch, OpenKey, and Go Moment is, does allow for that interconnectivity that is absolutely essential, because we cannot predict what kind of services this guest population is going to want in the future. So we have to stay nimble and ready to connect with anything that may come up. So, tomorrow there might be a replacement for Uber that every guest needs to have at their hotel, for example, in 3 years' time. And, we can commit that we are actually ready to be nimble and to adopt those kinds of new services that we cannot predict just yet.
Okay, next question, and I'll pose this to the panel. How long does it take typically for technologies like this to set up and integrate? Brian, do you want to start?
Well, I think a lot of that is going to determine, there's different types of expectations that hotels have. So for instance, the individual, the independent hotel might have a very simplistic environment with respect to, adding SkyTouch as their PMS or adding, Go Moment or OpenKey from a mobile standpoint. If you are a, portfolio of hotels, then it begins to, layer on some additional factors, especially when it comes to, something like mobile key, where there's the possibility to create a branded mobile key experience for guests in the event that the portfolio doesn't have their own branded app for guests as it is, where you include a number of different properties within a branded mobile key experience. And again, that branded mobile key experience can still connect with the SkyTouch PMS platform to create automated issued mobile keys. So the front desk simply just checks a guest in, and the mobile key gets sent to the guest's smartphone automatically. And Go Moment communication platform is integrated to handle that guest messaging while they're on stay. So it's hard to give a specific time frame, but the best technology that's out there on the market is actually designed to be fairly simple and quick to implement. So in our case, it's usually no longer than, say, a month for us to sort of work through all of the different components that are required to get a hotel up and running on mobile key and connect it to all of the other existing technology that's on site.
Great. For the SkyTouch perspective, our setup is actually pretty quick as well. We give the option of the desk to either do a remote setup or we can send out on-site support. The training is extremely simple. It's very user-friendly, and that's why it's a really great system for turnover at the hotel, which we know is a constant concern for our properties, of the ease of use, and we also utilize, we have a modules that they can self-paced learn from the system. So it's a matter of getting all the rates and everything set up in the system. So it's a very short process.
Yep. Likewise here on the Go Moment side with Ivy, and Ivy setups actually have been known to occur within a 5-day period from the time that we have an agreement signed with a hotel client. So it really, we look to match the pace and the urgency depending on exactly what's going on at the property or the group of properties that we're working with. And our system has been called as easy to use as Facebook. So it really barely even requires training, but at maximum requires about 1 hour of training with the staff. And for modern PMSs that we connect with, including SkyTouch, of course, that we are able to actually have a hotel up and running in just a few days' time with very little training and other materials required. So that's how the setup process works. And one thing that I did want to highlight here is that by training Ivy, and I think Peggy mentioned this a little bit, but by training Ivy, that you are actually centralizing a lot of information about your hotel into an artificial intelligence powered system, which means that for your, we know that in the hotel industry, there's staff turnover is a real issue with, about 25% churn rate and staff attrition on an annual basis. So what's interesting is that by training Ivy, we've actually found that some of the new staff members that join the hotel, if they don't know how to answer something, they're actually learning from the training we've already done during the setup process from Ivy, which again centralizes your organization's intelligence and knowledge into a system that is not going to be impacted by that staff attrition. So I think these cloud systems in general are really great for centralizing that information and making sure it persists over a period of years and decades potentially, rather than having to worry about losing that one key staff member that knows everything.
Great. For Peggy and Brian, for the front person at the front desk, what does the mobile key process look like? What's the experience going to look like for them?
For the front desk agent? So with that, it's instantaneous. So with our integration with OpenKey, we send a message to the system telling OpenKey to issue a key. So they send a text message to the guest, and the guest will download the OpenKey app, giving them instant access to their room. Brian, would you like to elaborate on that?
So, the folks that are on the webinar might have seen some press recently that went out about some of the innovative stuff that the Remington Hotels is doing. A lot of the hotel portfolios and brands are aggressively pursuing sort of a pre-communication process with guests in order to educate them about what their check-in options are. And in the case of Remington, actually encourage them to check in remotely prior to arrival so that they can push them a secure digital key to their mobile phone and lighten up the queue at the front desk, in some cases actually eliminating the queue at the front desk because guests are showing up at the property with their room key on their mobile phone already, and they simply go straight to their room, use their smartphone for access, and start their stay. You can imagine how important that is, in an environment a resort environment where guests are very anxious to get out to the pool or the beach or in Vegas where they want to get to the gaming floor. So it's that I think you're going to see more and more of that happening, but it's also important to note that having mobile key capability through a PMS like SkyTouch doesn't mean, it's not a causality that you have to skip the desk. The front desk agent is able to check the guest in and require a guest to come to the front desk if they want to in order to check into the room. What's neat about the SkyTouch integration is how simple it's made it for a front desk agent there's no additional step necessary. And in many cases, the front desk agent actually doesn't make a key any longer. They simply check the guest into the room, and the SkyTouch PMS does the hard work of actually communicating with the OpenKey platform and creating a digital key that gets sent, to Peggy's point, as a text message to the guest smartphone. In many cases, the pre-communication with that guest means that they've already downloaded the OpenKey app on their smartphone, even if they weren't sent the mobile key prior to arrival. So it's a very, very quick process that means the guest is checked in at the front desk and receives that digital key on their phone and is able to go straight to their room. So it's super fast. In many cases, it takes half the time to check a guest in with a digital key than it does with a traditional plastic key card that is, I think, on the way out just due to the sustainability component of getting rid of single-use plastics within hotels.
Now, Raj, can you help us understand what the experience is like with a platform like Ivy for the front desk?
Absolutely. So one thing that, the experience in a nutshell is extremely simple for the front desk. We actually rely on the front desk being distracted and busy with a million different things. So we've created our platform to run without needing to install any specific hardware or software. So you don't need tablets or a special computer. The existing front desk computer where you might have SkyTouch open, for example, is going to be perfect, and we can run in any modern web browser. And we also serve up notifications at the desktop level above any of the apps that you may be using. So if, let's say, a guest responds to Ivy and says, "Hey, Ivy, what's the Wi-Fi password?" Boom, 1 second later, the guest has an answer. Your staff don't even have to look at that question. So number one, we enable the staff to actually stay more engaged with their job. And the Cornell Hospitality School actually did a case study on Ivy specifically and showed that for every year that Ivy's being used at a hotel, that the staff engagement with their job is actually rising by 8%. And staff reported feeling less robotic because they actually had an assistant like Ivy in the mix handling all the simple questions. Now, if that same guest responds and says, "Hey, Ivy, why is the Wi-Fi so slow?" or "I can't connect to the internet," Ivy will understand this is a problem that's being reported and then send a desktop alert and a notification to your staff. In case your staff are not logged into the Ivy portal in order to answer this question manually, Ivy can also escalate to a text message notification or an email. So essentially, Ivy has lots of different ways and is an expert at getting a hold of the right person at the right time to get the guest served, of course. And in case the front desk are not answering in a timely manner, typically we see this set at about 5 or 7 minutes that the message has gone without resolution. Ivy also has the ability to automatically escalate to the front desk manager or the director of rooms or whoever that next person would be in the chain of command, so that there is accountability, as well as, of course, Ivy's always looking out for the guest to make sure that they're getting very quick and instant service. So the experience is very simple, and the platform is really easy to use, and there are a lot of safety nets that we've built into the platform in our 7 years of operation that make the system work really easily in any front desk environment, whether it's a team of one person at the front desk at a select service property, or a team of hundreds in a call center that are operating the platform.
Great. Well, I want to thank our panelists, Peggy, Brian, and Raj, for their time and expertise today. If we didn't get a chance to get to your questions, or if you want further information, please feel free to reach out and email Peggy at SkyTouch Technology, Brian at OpenKey, and Raj at Go Moment. I want to again thank our panelists, and I want to thank everyone who attended today. We will be posting a recording of this webinar online very soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.